Dr. Gupta, distinguished audience, friends from DRDO, members of the media. As Dr. Gupta rightly brought out, we are in a stage where things are changing quite fast, highly dynamic. The time cycles for the products, which has used to be 10 to 15 years, are now coming down to 5 to 7 years for turnaround. And this is the kind of challenges what are now facing DRDO. How to restructure, reinvent, realign itself for the future challenges. So let me just, I'll be covering the DRDO mandate, some of the successes, self-reliance, what we are doing for it, technology challenges, the environment in which we are working, most of you are aware, some of the issues, legacy equipment, how we plan to involve industry into our efforts, the export potential of our products, and what DRDO is planning to do in future. The basic mandate of DRDO is well known, is to have strategic autonomy. That means in the area of identified strategic products, which is the nuclear domain, EW domain, we must have totally indigenous capability. Second is the self-reliance. We have to make sure that we are able to sustain ourselves in case of prolonged war, in case of needs, and of course we must have a cutting-edge capability over our adversaries, as is the need for any defense requirements. Just to touch upon some of the successes, as you know, one of the biggest success of DRDO is the nuclear triad, the Agni series of missiles covering from 300 kilometers to 5,000 plus kilometers, the shipborne and the submarine underwater launch systems, and the air delivery systems. All three nuclear systems are operational. Arihant is getting powered up, critical stage has been reached, but we have reached the full power. But the important part is that weapons for all the systems are ready for deployment or already deployed. The second most important factor in this is the command and control structure. And we have installed a very elaborate, secure command and control structure operating from the apex authority to the vector at the operational level, with multiple layers, multiple centers of operation, multiple command centers, survivability, security, and the same chain has been activated in several launches of the missiles from various positions in the past, including one where the Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister himself gave the command for the launch of Agni 3 missile. So the robustness of these systems, their efficacy, effectiveness has been thoroughly validated, and the structure is totally operational. On the missile system, which is the second main success story of DRDO, we have said BrahMos is a world-class missile what we have got. 2 regiments have been inducted in the army, system installed in 8 ships. Orders worth 22,000 crores are lying with us, and many more are in the pipeline. And we are also working on the air launch version from Su-30, expected to be launched by the end of this year. And this is a joint effort between HAL and DRDO, missile coming from DRDO, total modifications to the aircraft being done by HAL. And the interesting part is this is the first time we are making major modifications on an imported aircraft on our own. That gives us the strength and the confidence what we have achieved in making our own systems ready. Other is the Akash surface-to-air missile. Both Army and Air Force have completed their trials. The system is under induction. Out of the 6 squadrons for Air Force, 2 are ready. Army, 2 regiments. First regiment is being inducted. And we had very successful trials in the past few months. Extended trials over a variety of applications, variety of scenarios, low flying, high flying, end of the range. And each one was a very successful trial. Astra, beyond visual range air-to-air missile, the first missile of its class in the country. 60 kilometers range, we have launched from the Su-30. It has gone through an electronic against an simulated target, meeting all the maneuvering capability requirements. And the flight against the actual target is planned shortly from Balasore. Simultaneously, Mark II, the rocket motor is also being modified to give it a range of 100 kilometers. And with this, Astra will be among the state-of-art missiles of its class today, anywhere in the world. Third area where we have made a major impact is the radars. I think today Indian radars are replacing most of the systems in our armed forces. Surveillance, tactical, weapon locating, battlefield surveillance radar, low-level tracking radar, SLESHA, and the Bharani. You see the numbers which are coming, and these are only some of the systems. There are others also which are coming. Each one of them has met the requirements, compared with the best in the world, and performed much better, reliable, both in accuracy as well as in performance. Sonar systems, we have long been a leading agency. Today all the ships and the submarines, recent ones, have been fitted with Indian sonars. We have fitted USHOs in the submarines. We have developed the advanced light towed array sonar, which is now be going for the flight trials. Hansa has been gone in various ships. We have also developed a dunking sonar, and we have also developed the decoy system. So again, sonar we have developed an across the spectrum capability, meeting all the needs of the armed forces, Navy. Coming to the electronic warfare systems, Samyukta for the Army has been deployed. Navy, various versions for the various ships have been integrated, and they have all been performing to the full satisfaction of the armed forces. A very extensive work covering the entire spectral range, 6 to 18 gigahertz, and now moving towards 40 gigahertz, has been installed based on indigenous capabilities and integrated in the field. On the electro-optics and communication systems, one of the major challenges which was posed to us about 3 years back was the night fighting capability of the armed forces. The Indian commander's sight, full TI gimbal, the target designator imager, and a variety of systems on the sites were developed, and they have all gone to production. In fact, recently several production import orders are being diverted for the indigenous systems being produced by them. Similarly, on the communication, the combat net radio developed by DEAL is being produced. S-band briefcase terminal, which PM carries normally. is indigenously developed with all the security features. On the armament sides, Arjun Mark 1, yes, good and problems, but there has been a lot of successes. Whether we see the Sarvatra bridging systems, we have got a 70 meters bridging system developed indigenously. Pinaka Mark 1 is a state-of-art multi-barrel rocket launcher, which we are 2 regiments delivered, but 22 regiments needed. And the prime challenge here is the production capabilities, production capacities, how to build the requirements in time. The bridge layer tanks, ROVs which are capable of destroying mines, which are also capable of detecting the NBC, working in NBC environment. The multi-purpose ROVs are being inducted in the armed forces. Ammunition, we are working with OFPs, we are also developing ammunitions for the tanks. FSA PDS Mark II is under development. Mark I went into production quite some time back. But more important, for our guns, the bimodular charge system, the tests are right now going on. Today what we are looking for is that you benchmark our systems with the whatever we are importing. Let us compare the performances of indigenous capabilities with the imported systems and then decide whether we are meeting or not meeting, and wherever gaps are there, we'll make sure that we go further and beyond the gaps. Multimode grenade has achieved a reliability of 99.8%. It is now going to be evaluated by the armed forces for production batch. Smoke grenade, ERA Mark 1 for our tanks, both T90 as well as Arjun, has been developed as a retrofit. And then the mines, eliminating grenades, and multiplicity of systems has been developed to meet the requirements. NBC technologies, today 80 to 85% of the armed forces needs on the NBC systems are being met by indigenous technology. This is right from the vehicles, suits, detectors, decontamination systems, and most important, the sensors. Today DRDO's developed sensors, CADA, is meeting the specifications compared with the rest of the world, and in many cases going ahead of it. This is another area where we see a large potential given the threats in our neighborhood today. There have been, with these successes, definitely there have been struggles and there have been problems. I don't think any R&D effort has ever been without struggles. MBD Arjun Mark 1 and Mark 2 have gone through a long phase of development, phase trials, weight problems, 1400 HP, not 400 engine. But if you see today, the comparable performance in terms of the performance, mobility, firepower, maintainability, Arjun is much better than the T90s. So even though these items have gone through the turbulent phase, today we have a product which can meet. The problem today is how to sustain a line with such small numbers, 120, 240 numbers, how to keep them maintained, how to keep them cost effective, how to keep them well equipped for the battle readiness. That is the main challenge what we are facing today, not the performance of Arjun per se. Similarly, LCA, 20-25 years of effort. But today we have a 4+ generation aircraft, contemporary, comparable with any single engine aircraft of its class in the world. And today The best certificate I got for LCA was from the pilots who were flying it. So we have not flown a better aircraft. In terms of the handling qualities, in terms of the weapon management, in terms of the weapon accuracies. And we are looking for a market of about 200 numbers for LCA, Mark 1 and Mark 2 combined. INSAS, 12 lakhs produced. Yes, we keep on getting feedbacks of problems in the field. And we need to create a mechanism. I think today what is lacking is a mechanism to address the feedbacks from the field, modify the production processes, updates, react to it fast, quickly, so that there is a satisfaction level is raised. And that is where we keep on having the unhappiness index with INSAS. So if we see, we have seen some of the things which we have done for the Air Force. Now what we are doing is much more. MR-SAM, an Indo-Israeli project, 70 kilometers, 5 squadrons, surface to air, is going for the hot trial in the month of September. It's a state-of-art missile, nothing like this is available in the world today. Astra, as we said, will be going for the Su-30 trials and will go for induction next year. Advanced early warning system. I think it is one of an excellent system which has been indigenously developed. Our own radar, our own communication systems, our own SATCOM system, ESM suite, communication relay, integrated IFF, all developed indigenously integrated onto the single aircraft. And I think the performance wise, it's one of a unique system. They are undergoing evaluation right now, and I am sure by the end of the year it will meet all the parameters. It has come to an advanced stage of performance meeting. Rustam 2, unmanned aerial vehicle, 24 hours endurance, undergoing the taxi trials right now. Will be going, first flight will be happening by end of the year or beginning of next year. And it has an array of sensors, including the KU band SAR, long range EOA electro-optic sensors, medium range electro-optic sensors, LN, and so on. And each one of them is being indigenously developed and will be integrated in this system. So kind of security of information, kind of control on the information, the quality of information is going to be much, much better than what we have today. LCA Mark II is coming out of the drawing board, meeting all the user requirements. Now we have jointly agreed on the specifications and systems will be coming. Air-to-ground anti-radiation missile. Another development taken up. Aerostat 2000 cubic meters, heavy drop systems, and most important, the IDSA radar for the LCA and for our future systems will be ready by next year end. Parallelly, we have also taken up AMCA, where Air Force and DRDO have come together, finalized the specifications, and now it will be again going for the next stage of design, evaluation and reviews. Unmanned combat air vehicles, air-to-surface missiles of various types, and the AVACS, where work is already starting. So if you see what we have done and what we are doing and what more we plan to do, you will see an exponential change happening in the system and the capabilities that are being created. Same thing for the Navy also. BrahMos is put on the systems, but now we are going for the longer range underwater missiles. We are working on a LCA for the Navy, of course, LR-SAM for the Navy, Samudrika, the new generation EW system for the Navy, software-defined radio for the Navy is going to go for test by the end of this month with multiple waveforms. Varnastra torpedo has gone through about 8 trials, successful consecutive trials meeting the requirements, and we are confident by end of the year it will be inducted. Marich decoy system, same situation. Advanced lightweight torpedo and ALTAS will be coming. But more important, We are going into higher end technologies, submarine periscope, which only 4 or 5 countries in the world are doing today. Autonomous underwater vehicles of higher depth, higher sustenance, wire-guided torpedoes with ranges of 50 kilometers, submarine launch cruise missile, and of course, indigenously designed air-independent propulsion system for the submarines, which is getting inducted into the French submarine. Once again, you will see the quantum change in the activities and the quality of activities. Army, I will say slightly slower. There has been a relatively less interaction. We need to do much more. But we have taken up advanced artillery gun, 158 numbers, which will be better in performance compared to what we are buying today. If you have to note that most of the countries, the guns which we are buying now, the lines have to be restarted. Production lines have to be recreated. And the technologies will be accordingly of that order. Whereas we are looking for an all-electric drive, a much higher salvo rate, a much better shock absorbing capability, and faster mobility. That is going to be the indigenous gun, and we are looking at it as an industry DRDO effort. In fact, all the efforts what I am talking are not going to be pure DRDO. They will be possible only when we integrate efforts from various teams. And of course, Pinaka rocket Mark II, and we are moving to Mark III, and so on. But the most important is we are looking for a futuristic main battle tank. I think the 4-man crew is no longer the right combination. With the today's technologies, if we simply translate the aircraft cockpit technologies of weapon management onto a tank, we can easily make a 2-man crew tank. Much lighter, much more effective, much more capable of defending itself. And that is the concept we are looking at, working with our armed forces. And this is another area where a lot of international collaboration is also possible. We are looking for partnerships. Then of course, man-portable anti-tank guided missiles of various ranges we will be working on. Now all this, how does it affect our self-reliance index? As we said that 30% is only in our minds. Somewhere we have got frozen in time. Today, if you take last 7 years sanctions, more than 50% of them are for indigenous items. And if we see how to enhance this, we have to primarily divide it into 4 areas: the platforms, weapons, ammunition, and the force multipliers. Because any one of them can make a major change. One single acquisition can change the self-reliance index in a single day decision. So where are we? Platforms. We are importing Rafale, MMRCA is under consideration, MRTA is under consideration, FGFA we are actively looking at it, C-130s we are buying, trainers we are buying. Correspondingly, what we have taken up, LCA Mark 1, Mark 2, AMCA, which will be better than the Rafale MMRCA in terms of its performance, same class, 25-ton class. Unmanned domain, which nobody will talk to us, nobody, because it comes under all types of control regimes. And then the industry, IJT, helicopters, RDA, which will make a major change in both civil and military segments. So the platform, if you see slowly, will be moving towards more and more indigenous platforms in the air. And same thing in the tank with the FMBT, once we agree, we'll be moving towards that. Ammunition, our aim is to make India ammunition import free. And I think that's one area where industry can play a huge major role in how to do it. Ships and submarines, today all ships and submarines, ships are being made in India, designed by the naval groups, and nuclear submarines we are making in the country. So if we see, there is a perceptive change from import towards the indigenous technologies, and I am sure when this matures, we will find India's self-reliance index will be considerably increasing. Because these are the high-value, big-ticket items. Same thing when we come to the weapons. If you see the missiles, we are simply covering the entire array of missiles what are needed by the armed forces. We are looking at an Akash Mark II which will be covering the entire spectrum of the performance what is needed for tomorrow's aircrafts. Army, as I said, the major chunk there is the tanks or the guns or the ammunition, and we are looking at all three. Pinaka, we are importing Smush today, but we are looking at Pinaka Mark III, which should be able to take a guided route to the same range, giving much better accuracies. These are the systems which will change the pattern of our self-reliance. Force multipliers. Radars, I don't think we will have to be dependent on anyone in radars in 10 years. If at all there is going to be a need, it's going to be a cooperative development to save time, to save money. Communication systems, SDRs is going to be the order of the day, software defined radios for Navy, Air Force, Army. EW systems, we are moving more and more towards indigenous contents, and of course sonar electro-optical systems. So if we see, as you have seen in all the 4 segments, we have taken major steps to make sure that our self-reliance content keeps on improving. And this continues further with the Air Force and other systems also. But to do this, it cannot be done by DRDO alone. It's a huge major effort in multiple areas, and what we are looking for is a time frame of 10 years or less than 10 years. So where are our critical gaps? While we have ambitions, we have several critical gaps also. First of all, India does not produce engine of any kind. There is aero engine, there is diesel engine, there is a gas turbine engine. So we are continuing with Kaveri development, moving it further to become a viable engine, particularly in the lighter unmanned systems. We are going ahead with the diesel engine. We have taken a national mission for a 1500 horsepower engine development and the transmission systems. And we have taken a multi DRDO, BHEL, HEL together are working together how to go for a gas turbine engine which can be fitted into the ships, railway engines and many other applications. So the spin-offs into the civil segment also are going to be tremendous from these technologies. Materials continues to be a weakness. Today we are, whether we look for high strength aluminium, lithium alloys, or we look for when I want to make a device, we don't have the wafers. I know when we wanted to make an impact diode, 94 gigahertz, how much difficulty we have to get a simple wafer imported. So we have to create our own capability in these areas. Polymers, we are working a lot. Fibers, silicon carbide fiber is going to be the future base. And these are the challenges we are taking up. Seekers is one area where we have lagged behind. We have made a lot of forward movement in imaging infrared seekers. We have come almost to the level of our confidence. But RF seekers, we are still lagging. And the primary problem there is the detectors and the RF sources. So we have to take steps. We are looking for international collaboration in setting up the capability for detectors in India, which can not only feed Indian demands, it can also feed in turn export back to the other countries and the RF sources. We have major infrastructure bottlenecks. The entire country has only one 46-year-old supersonic wind tunnel at any end. If it stops, the entire program will suffer, aeronautics program will be stuck. We don't have a high altitude engine test facility. We have only one missile test range, and which is also coming under pressure from our environmentalists and also from the economic interest of the area. We have no EW test range, open test range, we have no tank test range. We need a cyber test range where you can test the cyber tools in a worthy environment. We need a floating test range to test our torpedoes and also our anti-ballistic missile defense systems. Fabrication facilities, fabs. Fortunately, the country has now taken steps to set up 2 fabs, but we need fabs for the optical systems. Today we have major constraints in the optical system precision as well as capability generation. There is only one ammunition test range, PXE, where the entire production of OFP has to queue up to pass, and that also is coming under pressures from the various requirements. And of course, we need to enhance the precision manufacturing capabilities in the country. I think that's one area where we have neglected. We need to come to sub-micron level manufacturing capabilities, and that cannot be done by the private industry alone. On the systems, we have a large legacy systems. About 70% of our armed forces holding is old systems which need to be sustained. We are still working in spite of all our good relations, we are still banned under MTCR. Dual-use technologies take years to get any clearance, and many of them are denied. Simple thing like an FLIR, till last year was not being quoted. So these are the constraints from the various sides. Industry R&D investment is practically not there. Scientific knowledge base. Today, entire defense industry, it employs hardly 2,000 people per year for defense. Now where do you get a scientific knowledge base if the employment levels are so low? So the scientific knowledge base in the country in academia is very, very restrained, restricted, limited, which needs to be expanded. And only way to expand is to have defense capabilities, indigenous capabilities created, and find civil use for those capabilities. I think that has to be the driving factor for creating the knowledge base. And of course, we must have a national commitment to indigenization by all stakeholders. This will require a capability development plan. This will require ensuring preference for indigenous technologies, and this will also require a spiral development model where we are able to accept certain deviations in the Mark 1 and then go ahead to Mark 2, which is done by all countries for indigenous developments. Just to touch upon the legacy issue. So DRDO, as we have seen, bulk of our concentration is primarily to provide state-of-the-art equipments or look towards future. But one of the biggest problems today our armed forces are facing is that many of the equipments they bought under TOT, licensed production, the TOTs were half, the lines have stopped somewhere. How to continue that? Sometimes the relations between the TOT provider have degraded. Sometimes the lines, production lines in the original country have stopped, so the cost is inhibitive. Supply chain management is just not possible, but we have to sustain those equipment. And these are some of the examples what we have to do for the tank gun barrels, cartridge cases, live ammunitions, fuses became one of the major issues for our ammunitions, which we are now indigenizing, and many other areas. So I think this is one area where industry can easily get in. Huge market awaits in capability. Huge market awaits this development. And I think all of these are well within the capability of the industry if we make a little more effort, little more innovation, little more aggressive marketing. Second is the capability development plan. See, the nation's requirements have to be generated through the defense policy. Whether it's a hot pursuit policy or it's a second strike possibility, policy or it's an overwhelming response policy, what are our global or regional aspirations, what kind of relationships we have, that is going to derive what kind of war capability we need, what kind of equipments we need, what type of weapons and technologies we need. Draw from that a plan and then derive that plan into with your resource limitations, time and money constraints, to draw out what capacity I need to have. What are my R&D efforts needed in the next 5 years, next 10 years? What are my... It's not derived out of a wish list. It has to be derived out of a plan. And I think we need to sit down together, because the biggest problem what we face today is we are asked to develop a system when we are about to procure it. Now, no development cycle can match with a procurement time frame. Leaving aside the inefficiencies of our procurement process, which takes quite long, but otherwise it's just not possible. So we need to plan for development when we are planning our capability needs, not when we are starting the procurement process. And that's where we must have an integrated process of capability development plan, where in the short term we will be driven by the existing capability, and in the long term we will be driving the capability growth. What industries need to be created, what manufacturing processes need to be developed, where I need to have TOTs for technology, what offset management I need to do, has to come as an integral plan out of this process. I think this is one most important, and this will also tell me what kind of human skill management I need to create. Because China, when it wanted to develop an aerospace system and made it a policy, I think within a decade, it expanded to 400,000 people in aerospace segment alone. That is the kind of planning, multi-pronged planning which is needed. Coming to the industry, industry has grown manifold. I must say that from the periods in 70s when we started working together, where we used to look for a simple manufacturing capability, industry has evolved into a good design partners and are capable of making major systems. And this is the time when we have to make sure that there is a good synergy. DRDO is not competing with industry. DRDO is riding over the industry. We are looking for a capability base emerging in the country so that I don't have to develop my own servo valves, I don't have to develop my own actuators, I don't have to develop my own onboard computers, which till yesterday we had to do because no industry was capable of doing it. Today, I am happy that industry can do, and half of DRDO's load can be taken by industry in developing state-of-art products, subsystems, even systems. Today the launchers are coming from the industry. Today the major systems are coming from industry. And I am looking at that what it has brought in for DRDO is a major change in our thought processes with respect to many of our laboratories. For example, the labs which were working on vehicles, R&D engineers, VRD, they have to look for a new strategy, a new area. They have to move to unmanned systems, robotic systems, futuristic technologies to create, so that we move one step ahead of the capability which exists. And that's where we are looking at industry to become our strength. And if you see, we are seeing an acquisition budget of 50,000 crores, about 10% annual growth. Currently, most of this production is primarily in DPSUs. There's a huge backlog, Akash, LCA, Pinaka, radars also. And we are looking for many, many more systems to come. Within a year, we are looking at Astra will be going to production, LR-SAM will be going to production. We are going to look for larger numbers of BrahMos. We are looking for many more radars. So the market is going to expand. So this is the time, and the time to induction is getting reduced. We can't afford 8 years, 10 years of production cycles. So I think this is the time when industry has to get in at the base level. Today DRDO is interacting with more than 1,000 industries, large, medium scale, who have been our development partners at component levels, system levels, as subsystem levels. And this is what we are looking for from industry and the system. What DRDO needs or any defense, any research or production development needs, that first we must identify projects well in time. As I said, there should be a capability development plan which should result in identification of which products will be taken by DRDO. Industry, of course, will always be part of DRDO's projects. Which products will be taken by industry? Today we are looking at a new model where Bell can take on the product, Tata's can take on the product, and DRDO's know-how can be used for facilitating those products to come into market, and a lot of activities will go directly to industry, I am sure. At least 50 to 60% of defense needs, I am sure, will go directly to the industry in future. We need to define jointly PSQRs with the groups, collegiate system to be created, and everywhere people learn from what they buy. In India, we try to become compartmental. I think we have to break those compartments. We have to create integral systems where information flow happens, learning happens, and most important, I think we have to start benchmarking Indian products with the imported systems. I would also like to check up. I often wonder, while we are so critical of our indigenous products, how badly they are performing or how well they are performing, I have never seen anybody asking how an imported system has performed. How many of them are really working? How many of them are really suitable for Indian environments? I think at time we need to take a performance audit of Indian systems versus the imported system, and then compare where we stand. We need test platforms because we are dependent on services for the evaluation of our platforms. We need realistic test time frames. It's not us only, everybody. Surprising, I saw one case, development started in 93, offered for testing in 97, 2004, acceptance trials still going, 2014, acceptance trials are still going on. 17 years. So we need to create realistic time frames for evaluation of a system, and if we are not satisfied, let's dump it. There's no point in going forward if we are not satisfied. Spiral development we have touched. I think leveraging offsets for technology inputs has to become a national priority and national policy. Industry commitment and industry investment in R&D. Upgradation of manufacturing skills, which also leads to automation, supply chain management, upgrading our capabilities, we need to do. Because tomorrow when I am looking for, let's say, high energy solar devices, I need to have mirrors with some 1 microradian accuracy stabilization, which will require different levels of fabrication capabilities. And that is what industry has to provide. We have to get in there now. Industry in turn wants there should be firm orders. We have to ensure. Today we keep on taking, yes, you be sure we'll give you orders. But why can't we give those orders right up front? What is preventing? We are subject to acceptance after success. If it doesn't succeed, we don't pay. But at least he knows if I am successful, I will have to deliver so much. There should be a fair competition, firm quality and inspection procedures which should not change. But more important is that there is a lot of infrastructure which has been created in government sector for test and evaluation. Unfortunately, private sector cannot create that kind of infrastructure at the moment. So that infrastructure should be available to industry for testing, evaluating their systems, their capabilities, and of course, government will have to continue to invest in future also in major manufacturing infrastructure. Exploitation for export. I think no defense industry anywhere can survive without export being an integral part of the planning. I think we have to think and be touching more of it. Services, definitely they want the best, good product, no slippages, strict adherence, and of course life cycle support, obsolescence over 25 to 30 years, which is a major challenge, and a cost competitive product. All these have to contribute to economic growth of the country, create a unique fighting capability, a sustained war fighting capability, and this is what has to come out. So what are we suggesting? I think this is possible only through, we must set up a military industrial complex where we identify few industries. If you see in US, there are only 2 companies in the last 50 years who have been making submarines, nuclear submarines. Why can't we have to create a system of confidence, of trust, open book accounting, visible processes, where we can identify, yes, these are the 2 people, let us compare these 2 and go to one, or even nomination basis with a open accounting with efficiency check. I think in the initial phase we will have to do something like that if we want to develop our own industry and help it come to a maturity in defense. We must identify certain tier 1, tier 2 industries in a time-bound manner. There should be a mechanism in place for embracing new entrants after a due course. And I think for some time to come at least, industries will have to work as consortium. Even today we have seen not much of capability exists where we can deliver, a single industry can deliver a full system with the full confidence. Second is, I think our industry is no longer in their nascent. See, they have matured, they have grown, they are going international ventures. Why can't they take proactive support? Today, if I want a battlefield surveillance radar, why can't an industry develop a good state-of-art battlefield surveillance radar? It costs hardly 50-60 crores to develop. What is the problem? Can't our industry take even this much of risk? Make a state-of-art product if you are confident of doing it. Get the best people from wherever. Make the product and then offer it. I am sure nobody can say no to a product which is better than what they are otherwise buying. Why does industry have to wait for orders from government all the time? I can understand if it is a missile system or a submarine costing thousands of crores, you can't afford to take the risk. But there are so many other products at base level which industry can definitely take on. I think industry has to do some self-introspection also in this area. We have to create, I think some manufacturing hubs will have to be created in a public-private model where government funded to start with, but privately managed to get best efficiency, fast response, reactive system, and then we can slowly, it can change over to the fully private model. We have to create parallel chains in PSUs and private industries if we want to meet the challenge of our requirements in future. There must be parallel chains. We can't simply ignore PSUs. They have got so much of infrastructure, so much of capability, invested, lying, so much of experience. But there is no reason why I can't have 2 chains for Akash. Why can't I have two chains for another system, one for indigenous and one for export? We have to explore those possibilities. And as I said, access to government-owned infrastructure will have to be provided to make it a successful model. Simultaneously, we need to look at the export potential. I think our concerns often, whenever I talk of exports, the first question, how can you talk of exports? We are not even making for ourselves. Where is the product? But I think instead of saying that we are not capable, we have to start demanding from ourselves. I don't think we are so weak that we cannot meet a system. We have made an LCA, we have made a Arihant, we have made an Agni. It is now for us to make sure that it comes to the real level of maturity in given time frame. Put the necessary resources, develop the industry maturity. That demand drives the capacity. Let us not wait, no capacity, so why should I export? We have to create, let the market develop. Today, if I place an order for a foreign company, the first product doesn't come overnight, it comes after 2.5 years, because the lines have to be restarted everywhere. I am sure in 2.5 years our industry can also gear up and produce any missile system or any aircraft system today, if given the mandate. We can do it. And finally, moral or ethical issues. Somehow I could never digest it, because if importing is moral, I don't see why exporting can be moral. Of course, all exports have to be government approved. All over the world, defense exports have to be government approved. They need to have a single window clearance, given time frame. And parallelly, we have to create political leverages to encourage exports, have re-export clauses, consortium partnerships with the foreign countries, offset management. If I want to export LCA, I must get US clearance to use their engine in an exportable aircraft. So those are the political leverages which we have to create. When I buy a C-130 from US, I should put it as a clause that you will permit me to export LCA with your engine. These are the initiatives we have to create. Of course, government sponsorship, government-to-government deals, finance credit line. These are the standard processes in any. Another is to make a fast response. We must create certain clear list. Okay, this can be exported irrespective of anything. I don't see why to export bridges to Bangladesh, I have to take permission of somebody. If we don't sell, somebody else will sell. It's not a big thing which will hit you. So we should identify a lot of technologies. I am sure more than 50% of the products can be found where you have almost 80% of the world's countries can be given a green list for that. So we have to look for that. But you cannot have exports without a proper, strong marketing strategy. You have to create that. Public sector today is satisfied with the indigenous demand, with the indigenous capability. Their hands are full, saturated. But we need to create a marketing drive where India defense products emerge as a brand, where the capability is seen. Create a military industrial complex where government-owned IPR or industry-owned IPR has to be properly taken. Explosives. Today one of the biggest problems is explosives, small arms licensing, production licensing to the private sector. Pinaka got stuck in its production because of that. Technology subset for exports, and finally mature to technology exporters. We have to create those levels, and this of course will have to be with the product sustenance, life support, a quality ecosystem, but most important is going to be the armed forces support in this. Because if we want to export a defense product, there has to be a pedigree to it. That pedigree can be created only by our armed forces. I think that will be the first thing. This is some of the systems which are almost ripe for export. You can create a market any time for these systems. We already have many foreign collaborations, Russia, Israel, France, Belarus, Singapore, and many others in many areas, in various areas. Some of these collaborations can be further expanded to exploit these capabilities. So this is what we saw, how we are looking at Indian capability today. So what we are suggesting is that if we want to enhance to 70% in the next 10 years, we need to launch 5 mega missions. First is the mission missile autonomy, covering the entire spectrum of missiles. We have already taken up a large chunk of it, which is under development, but we need to take some more. And this will cover from subsonic to hypersonic, will cover from various platforms, air to surface, surface to air, surface to surface, anti-ship, and so on. But the capability exists. We need to launch a program, and that program has to become a program where industry has to play a major role. Because I don't think any one of these missions, what I am talking of, can be single-handedly handled by DRDO. Each one of them, we are working out models, what roles who can play, and we are looking for that by 2025 with these missions we should be able to reach 75 to 80% of self-reliance. Mission air dominance, where we are looking at the surveillance systems beyond Rustam 2, weapon delivery systems, unmanned systems, and of course, as I said, manned AMCA, and has to become major programs to be taken up on a fast track. Modernizing army for higher penetration capability, higher mobility, our own engines, a higher firepower, much more lethality, and at the same time providing the necessary protection. A multi-pronged technology efforts, and I think bulk of it will be coming from the industry, will be initiated, can be initiated. On the sensors, we want to integrate across the nation the various sensors, long range, medium range, short range, into an integrated network with a high response speed, capable of identifying any threat in real time, reacting to it on the spot, multiple modes of reacting, tracking it over when the threat posed. So this will require a kind of variety of radars, IR systems, over the horizon radars, and a wide class of systems along with secure communication links, information processing, and interoperability of the various systems. Major challenge to network, but I think this is going to be an essential part of future warfare if we have to be really capable. And then a blue sea strike capability where longer range missiles, higher sensitivity sensors, longer range weapons will become integral parts of our ships and submarines, which are being set up anyway by the armed forces. I think these 5 systems together, once we take, can easily lead to the required level of confidence and capability in the country, from where there is no looking back. At the same time, future, we have to prepare for cyber security in all the 3 domains, that is the monitoring, protection, as well as deterrence, space security of our assets, being able to react to any threat to our space assets, the cognitive technologies enabling the soldier, better management of the spectrum, unmanned warfare, remote warfare, what I call unmanned systems coupled with directed energy weapons, a human war, And one of the most important areas we are just touching, I think the future, with the resources crunch becoming more and more critical on the ground, there will be urge to exploit underwater resources. It's time we have to start thinking about what kind of challenges, what kind of conflict scenarios it will create, what kind of protective mechanisms we need to develop, and what kind of technologies are needed to safeguard our interests in those scenarios. So these are the new technologies, and each one of them will require basically a strong academic base. It cannot be done just in labs, it cannot be done in industry. That is a follow-up. But first we have to create an aware system and knowledge centers to handle these capabilities. We have already established certain centers of technology in various campuses, and we have taken this as a major thrust area, one of the key thrust areas of DRDO, working on a DARPA-like model, creating technology centers across the country in academic institutes, enabling them to take on high-end, high-risk research with a high flux of manpower, where a large number of students, PhD, MTech students work on these technologies, with a continuous flow of ideas, flow of movement of people, and there is never any stagnation of thought. That's our process. We are planning to set up one center at Jalapur University for the robotic unmanned soldier. We are setting up a center between IIT Mumbai and Chennai together for the propulsion technologies, both current and future. We are looking at centers in other places for materials, high-speed computation, barrier-breaking computations, advanced hypersonic technologies, morphing aerostructures, and so on. Our aim is create an independent capability, creating a momentum in the society, in the country as a whole, drive the technology, and to create a new cutting-edge capability for our defense forces. Finally, in conclusion, I would just like to say that self-reliance, repeat, is a national goal. It has to be supported by everybody. There has to be a commitment. There has to be a commitment to indigenous technology utilization. You cannot reject an indigenous technology because it weighs 50 grams more. We have to have a capability plan which should be policy driven and not vendor driven. We must have a performance audit of imported systems and benchmarking with indigenous equipment. We need a proactive industry participation. The industry should come forward with ideas, solutions, processes. We need a military industrial complex to be identified, to be created. It's not a co-located, it's a spatially distributed complex. But the capability to deliver systems, DRDO of course has to prepare to keep pace with modernization. I wrote it specifically because if we simply see the pace of technology acceleration in our neighborhood, it will tell us that we are not just lagging, we are lagging at a faster and faster pace. And that requires resources, commitment, as well as a focused thrust into key areas. There is a need for export facilitation, investment in infrastructure, and finally, the key to all this, a wider human resource base. So all I can say is that DRDO is preparing itself for the future, preparing itself for the technology challenges, both current as well as anticipated. And it's a game where we are together with our armed forces, we are together with the industry, and for us, it's a national effort which will take us further. Thank you.